Welcome to the Wellness Empowerment Project. I'm Trish.
And I'm Julie. We are two nurses exploring holistic healing and wellness practices to empower you to be the leader of your own health. Join us as we try out new things, or as we call it, weird shit, and have some fun along the way. Hello, and welcome back to the Wellness Empowerment Project. This is part 2 where Trish interviews Kathleen. If you did not listen to episode 51, I would encourage you to pause this episode and go back to 52 and check it out, because we're leaping right back in with Trish and Kathleen.
It's mentioned in your bio that you work with UFO and UAP.
Yes.
How does that connect with all of this? And how did you really get into that? Because let's face it, when you see someone with a P and then working and talking about UFOs, a lot of people will look at that and say, wow, those are two very different extremes.
Mm-hmm.
How those link up?
You're not going to believe this. In the Tibetan tradition of the rainbow body teachings, it says that the teachings come from the realm of the Buddhas, which is a spiritual realm, and they are taught in 12 other star systems, including our own. In other words, the rainbow body tradition says that other star systems have beings that have attained their rainbow bodies. I believe some of the beings, some of the light forms that people see in relation to the UAP phenomena, UFO phenomena, are really beings from other places and realms that have attained their light bodies. Sometimes we see craft. I do believe there's also craft. But see, this light body can travel on its own. You don't need a regular craft for it. It can travel on its own. But I do believe there's craft too. To tell you a little bit about how I got interested in the UFO topic, it was the year 2000. I had just graduated with my doctoral degree, and my husband and I got married. We were sitting in our first little townhome, and it was in the summer, and it was the Summer Olympics. My husband loves the Olympics, so we were watching the opening ceremonies, and it was in Sydney, Australia. And here's this art image that in the opening ceremonies starts to emerge out of the floor. It's this huge head with these huge eyes. And I immediately had that intuitive feeling, pay attention, this is important to you. I looked up days later what that image was, and it's called a wangina. And these images of a huge head with these huge eyes are drawn in these caves in Sydney and in the outback of Australia. They are considered the sky gods who came down, and maybe even the creator gods in the dream time. They are worshipped or venerated, let's say venerated is probably a better way, by the ancient Aboriginal people who continue to every year in a special ceremony draw these images so that they remain in the caves and help give water to the people. When I saw that image, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to follow that up. It turns out that a couple months later, I really wanted to move, and I move around a lot. I really wanted to move to upstate New York, and so we did. It turned out we moved into the New Paltz Pine Bush area, and I had no idea, but Pine Bush was a UFO hotspot years earlier. My husband and I were walking around in a bookstore. I was doing some adjunct teaching at SUNY New Paltz at the time. They had this nice little bookstore there. I was walking through this bookstore, and there was a little Post-it card, little index card above this book. And it said, do you know who your neighbors are? It was this book by Ellen Crystal. On the cover was a face very similar to that Wangina face. It turns out in UFO community, you would know it as a gray now, a gray being. We bought the book, and we realized that many people in that area had these UFO experiences. We finally met this wonderful couple who ran a support group for all the experiencers in the area who, even though there was a lot of them, they still couldn't really share it with the community or share it with their family. And so they would every month have a support group where all these people would come and tell their stories. My husband and I started going every month. And because I'm intuitive, because I have this counseling background, I could tell these people are telling their real life story about these experiences they don't understand at all. The support group just said to them, "We know we've had this," or, "Oh, that's interesting." It gave them a place to share their story, and they felt better just because of that. We went for a couple years to these groups. I knew from the very beginning that people were having real experiences that were anomalous, that we don't understand what's going on, but something is going on. And that was my whole opening to the experience.
So you definitely see that the UFO, UAP is very much connected to those teachings
Mhm.
and the Buddha teachings of the body.
The 12
Well,
different star systems. Within the UFO community, okay, there's Palladians, there's Arcturians, there's Syrians. These are star systems that are very popular, and people say they are communicating with beings from there. It turns out many of those same places are mentioned in the Tibetan literature as being places that teach the rainbow body information. I think they're related. Believe me, the UFO community does not talk about this. This is something that I want to bring to them. And every time I get the opportunity, I want to link it.
absolutely fascinating. Let's just circle back to the very beginning. We talked about our sub personas. If someone is okay, how do I take the first couple of steps just to help myself be able to get to that center? What would you tell them to do?
The first step, really, in so much healing is becoming aware. Now that you know this, pay attention to yourself. Every once in a while, look at yourself and say, "What vibratory field am I in?" Now, that might be too hard. Just say, "What emotion am I feeling right now? What are my thoughts right now? Is this someplace I regularly go? Am I having these thoughts again? Am I having this emotional feeling again?" Start paying attention. "Oh my gosh, something happened and now I'm thinking those same thoughts. Oh my gosh, something happened. Now I'm feeling that again." Get to know yourself. Pay attention to how you react. After you do that, you'll realize, yeah, you're pretty often in a couple of different emotional fields or different types of thinking patterns. You might say that's a sub part of yourself. Now you're the boss. Now you're the worker. Now you are the religious, spiritual person. That's even a part, really. And get to know those different fields that you go into, what kind of parts you go into, and recognize it. And realize if you want to get clearer, if you want to ask for guidance from a higher perspective, come back to your center. Now, what does that mean? You got to figure that out. Take a walk quietly in nature. How do you feel? A lot of times you're in a centered place then. Sit quietly. Do some yoga. How do you feel after? Those are things that usually will help you get to your center so you know what that means. Then you can say, okay, am I in these parts, these emotions, or am I feeling connected, at peace, good, everything's okay? Am I feeling that? You're probably closer to your center. Now, if you realize something's throwing you off center, as fast as you can, realize, "Oh, yeah, I've done it again." Pull yourself back to your center. That can be hard because you are used to being in those parts. You have to give yourself some minutes, maybe an hour or something, to get yourself back. How do you get yourself back? Do the things we mentioned. What favorite music do you have that maybe brings you back? Figure out some ways, make a little toolbox of what you can do to bring yourself back to those feelings and pull yourself out of that. And then you can look at what you did, look at the situation, look at the person you're talking to in a clearer way. This is so important if you have relationships that get into a pattern of poor communication. Because what usually happens is that when you're in a relationship with somebody and you get pulled off center, your partner will feel that and they'll go off center. And then you're in this dance and you'll probably never resolve it. If you're in those parts, you'll just keep yelling at each other, keep being upset. You both, in the best case scenario, you both have to come back to your center and talk from that. Oh, I see when you said this, I went there. And I went there because when I was little, I didn't like it when something, and you'll grow by having a good centered communication with your partner. And that's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is that you're in communication with somebody who's not that aware, who doesn't want to grow like this. That's hard. You still come back to your center, and it's better because you're less likely to trigger them if you're in your center. Okay, because you're going to trigger them, they're going to trigger you. So that's better. You just say a couple prayers for them or whatever, that they can come back to their center as soon as possible. Because if you're unaware, you might think that your off-centered part is who you are because you don't know any better. Remember, you're in it all the time. You're not seeing it from the outside perspective. The whole thing boils down to being aware of yourself, growing in awareness that you're all of that, making a decision that you want to grow spiritually. And that's a very motivating decision because when you're acting from fear or anger, any of the other more negative emotions, a spiritually minded person, you don't really want to act from there. It's a very motivating factor to say, okay, let me come back to my, and by the way, in general, your centered state is the healthiest state for your body too. Because as all those other emotions are producing all those internal body stuff that's making you less healthy. There's one other thing, I'll stop there, but there's one other thing I do want to say before we end about that though. Should I just go ahead?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to end this though, because I said that the centered state's the most healthiest. We cannot judge an unhealthy body because I believe that our bodies are here for our soul's experiences. And so sometimes, no matter what you do, you can't heal something and you might try. I believe sometimes it's really our soul wants to have something wrong with the body for some reason, or wants us to have an emotional reaction for some reason. If we remember that, we can't really judge. We can try our best to be as centered and as healthy as possible. But just because you're not healthy, you can't judge that's really wrong. Sometimes the soul wants those experiences and put you in that place for that very reason. We can't judge ourselves and others if we're not 100%. Nobody is. And as a matter of fact, the soul wants all the experiences. Just remember that can be okay too.
I think that really puts it in a great perspective because the reality is, unless there's a trial, unless there is something to work through, how else are you going to be able to evolve
That's
and,
exactly right.
and get that deeper relationship? So just
Exactly.
you're using that example of that push and pull with another person, but truthfully, once you work through that, you do end up with a deeper connection. We could actually say the same in our lives. Yet we don't want to judge ourselves because if we're not in a healthy state. But with that said, when those trials come up, whether you want to call it a problem or you're unhealthy or you're just going through something, it could be just to help bring you to a closer level, a deeper connection with yourself.
100%. I love just how you said that.
Kathleen, we talk about the gamut today. What are you focusing in on right now? And how can people find you?
I do have a website and it's long. It is pureenergylady.wixsite.com/presentations. I have to read it just because it's always long. pureenergylady.wixsite.com/presentations. That's very long, but you can find me there. I run groups every month. I have a group for the UFO people, and I have a group I call Soul Support Group for the people who are looking to become more aware of themselves and to grow in a spiritual way. Every month, usually, I have classes that I do, and it's all posted on my website.
That's great. We'll definitely be putting all that information in the show notes. We'd love to add a lot of the books that you mentioned as well. so
Okay.
people can go back for them to reference.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. It was a pleasure and an honor speaking with you today.
Thank you, Trish. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, subscribe, and share with a friend. Want to learn more about a specific topic? Drop us a line on our website and we can explore it deeper with you.